RPGs have always been about power. In classic RPG systems, abilities and gear improved your stats. You could learn new combat abilities, but there wasn't really any way to change or improve those abilities beyond leveling up. As the genre has evolved and expectations have increased, we've seen the introduction of systems like talent trees, which have stat boosts and extra abilities. Many of those systems still only give the player new toys, not really changing the ones they currently have. Enter Diablo. Diablo 3 specifically, as that's where most of my Diablo playtime is. Diablo 3 has your standard abilities that most RPGs give you. Their stats and levels and everything you would expect, but Diablo 3 takes customization even further. Abilities don't just get tiny stat boosts. This difference might sound small on paper, but it completely changes how you approach a character. Instead of asking, how do I make this number go up, you start asking, what kind of character do I want to play today? That shift in mindset is what separates a game you finish once from a game you keep coming back to season after season. Runes and legendary items can completely change your playstyle. I'm Alex with Serious Goose Games, and today we're breaking down how Diablo 3's approach to ability-changing gear has created some of the most dynamic forms of player expression in modern RPGs, and what we can learn from that approach. Diablo 3 proves that keeping abilities and gameplay interesting doesn't come from stronger abilities, but evolving playstyles. While many games get away with stat boosts for abilities and talents, many of those games are more focused on narrative anyway. You look at Final Fantasy and other JRPGs and you see a huge story with a crazy amount of detail. Sure, Diablo has a story, a pretty good one in my opinion, but people aren't playing 30+ seasons of Diablo 3 for the story. There's something else, something that draws players in and keeps them going. While Diablo 3 has stat bumps that increase your damage, and even an entire Paragon system that is just stat boosts, builds never revolve around stats. They revolve around legendary gear and runes. In many RPGs, you can play the same build the entire time just with bigger numbers. In Diablo 3, the availability of gear means you're changing and adapting your playstyle to match the gear you get. This is why so many RPG builds feel solved a few weeks after launch. Once the math is done, creativity dies. If the best option is always the same talent, the same rotation, the same stat priority, then the only remaining progression is time investment. You aren't making interesting decisions, you're just waiting for the numbers to catch up. Because so many RPGs use stat boosts, many skill trees become filler. You might have a massive skill tree system, but if most of the tree is small percent boost to stats, then how engaging is it really? What is the draw of that system beyond just bigger numbers? Skill trees that are full of small stat boosters aren't deep. They result in false depth because none of the choices that you make are meaningful. There's no difference between taking a 10% damage boost in the skill tree and just equipping a new sword with 10% more damage. False depth is especially dangerous because it looks impressive. A massive skill tree gives the illusion of complexity, but if the outcome barely changes regardless of the path you take, the system becomes noise. Players feel this instinctively even if they can't articulate it. They stop experimenting, they stop reading tooltips. The tree becomes a checklist instead of a playground. This also leads to problems with class identity. If the only real form of customization in loot is number bonuses, then builds mean nothing. It's all the same playstyle with no real variety. Players will find the abilities that work best, publish it online as a guide, and every player will use that setup moving forward. Diablo 3 abandoned this approach. I might roll a wizard, and my friend might roll a wizard, but while he focuses on a meteor build, I might focus on an archon build. We're both wizards, but we play very differently. This difference is huge for long-term engagement. When two players can talk about their wizard and mean fundamentally different things, the game suddenly has social depth. You aren't just sharing stats, you're sharing stories, builds, and identities. That's how communities form around systems, not just content. In Diablo 3, items have different levels of quality. That's pretty standard. Normal gear gives stat boosts and some extra small effects, but nothing that fundamentally changes how you play for the most part. Then you get your first legendary and everything changes. Not only are the stats better, but one of your abilities gets a massive boost. Legendary items aren't just stat sticks, they're playstyle changers. The brilliance here is that the loot drop itself becomes exciting again. You aren't just hoping for higher rolls, you're hoping for inspiration. A single item can make you rethink everything you were doing 5 minutes ago, and that kind of disruption is incredibly powerful in a genre that can otherwise become routine. A barbarian with the Gavel of Judgment makes Hammer of the Ancients into their whole identity. Depth Diggers make primary skills much more important in a build since they get a significant damage boost. Wizards with the Firebird's Finery set essentially become immortal arsonists, dealing massive fire damage and disintegrating enemies without breaking a sweat. On top of legendary items, the game also has built-in ability customization. Runes can modify abilities and completely change how they work. As you level, you unlock new runes, allowing you to experiment and customize as you level up. When you combine runes with legendaries, you create whole new class archetypes beyond what you see at the start. When you use legendaries and runes, you aren't just getting a damage boost, you're choosing how your class plays on a fundamental level. This also means experimentation is safe. You're not permanently locking yourself into bad choices or bricking a character. You're encouraged to try weird combinations, fail, adjust, and try again. That freedom lowers the fear of experimentation, which is something a lot of RPGs struggle with. This works because we aren't giving players math problems to solve, we're giving them a whole box of toys to play with. Gameplay isn't about the numbers, it's about discovering new synergies and ways to play the game. Optimization isn't just about numbers in Diablo 3, it's about positioning and timing. When you run rifts and you get new loot, you're not just potentially changing your stats, you're potentially changing your whole build. This is where Diablo 3 quietly teaches players how to engage with its systems. Instead of saying optimize the spreadsheet, it says go see what happens if you put these two things together. The game rewards curiosity, not just efficiency, and that's a big reason it remains approachable even years later. Even with this system in place, how does Diablo 3 keep abilities interesting? Like sure, the abilities change, but those changes still have to be interesting. It's all about interacting with the game mechanics in different ways. In Diablo 3, movement is huge. Many builds make it so you deal damage around yourself as you move. Demon Hunters are basically Beyblades, and Wizards are living nukes. Other builds change how you interact with the environment, like bouncing shields off walls to build up damage instead of straight weapon damage as a Crusader. What's important here is that these mechanics don't exist in isolation. Movement affects damage, damage affects positioning, positioning affects survivability. The best builds force you to think about multiple systems at once, which keeps even simple moment-to-moment gameplay engaging. These builds all introduce new mechanics for the player to think about. Some builds create a multi-stage resource loop where you have to balance resource generation with resource usage. Some builds like Archon builds use buffs and debuffs to increase power. My Wizard uses Archon to build stacks and then deals huge damage outside of Archon mode because of those stacks. I mentioned positioning already. Some builds require specific positioning and movement to be effective. These builds might also change the abilities you focus on. Instead of spamming one ability, you might have to rotate through several to maintain high DPS. These kinds of loops create rhythm. You're not just reacting, you're planning windows of power and vulnerability. When done well, this turns combat into something almost musical, where timing matters just as much as raw output. Items in Diablo 3 are all about changing how you play. A wizard can become an insanely tanky nuke with the right items. The optimization puzzle of Diablo 3 basically guarantees that you're going to need to increase the difficulty to multiple levels of torment just to have a challenge. Items in Diablo aren't just stat upgrades, they're identity upgrades. This framing is important. When items define identity instead of power, players feel ownership over their builds. Losing an item hurts, but gaining one feels transformative. That emotional swing is something most stat-driven systems simply can't replicate. What about other games? Diablo 3 is great and all, but there are other options. Path of Exile uses a similar setup, Final Fantasy XIV uses abilities in a more classic way, and Baldur's Gate 3 also has unique and interesting abilities. Each system has pros and cons and appeals to different players. Diablo 3 isn't known for being the best ARPG out there, but in this one area, it really excels. What's interesting is that none of these systems are strictly better, they're better at different things. Diablo 3's strength isn't ultimate depth or realism, it's momentum. It keeps players moving, experimenting, and feeling clever without overwhelming them. In Path of Exile, items and gear transform abilities like in Diablo. You can take a fireball and turn it into a huge explosion or a single target nuke. Path of Exile has crazy amounts of customization with large amount of complexity. The downside is the complexity of the system can be off-putting to new players and onboarding can be difficult. If you're experienced with ARPGs though, Path of Exile is worth looking at if you're tired of Diablo. Path of Exile asks players to commit to mastery. Diablo 3 asks players to commit to play. Neither approach is wrong, but they create very different relationships between the player and the system. Final Fantasy XIV and other MMORPGs are usually pretty limited in how they approach this. Abilities are pretty static with minimal changes from items. There is much less creative expression for players to explore in these games, but the skill ceiling is high. The mastery loops in an MMO are usually very polished, and it always feels good to nail down the perfect rotation and topping the DPS meter. WoW does okay with changing abilities. The effects from talent trees are much less pronounced than in Diablo, but they can completely change how you play. I've also picked up trinkets that have had active abilities I've put into my rotation. Baldur's Gate 3 is an amazing tactical RPG that truly encompasses the strategic gameplay of D&D. Because D&D characters don't get huge numbers for stats, abilities have to interact in different ways, so Baldur's Gate abilities can interact with the world, not just enemies and characters. It creates a system that almost feels like a sandbox in execution. You're given a bunch of toys, and it's up to you to figure out fun ways to use them. This kind of systemic interaction highlights an important design truth. When numbers are constrained, creativity expands. Limitations force designers to lean into interactions instead of raw scaling, and players feel that difference immediately. Diablo 3 is a good combination of all of these and has some strengths. It's more accessible than Path of Exile, more expressive than MMORPGs, and more fast-paced than Baldur's Gate. Diablo 3 sees these games and fits snug in the middle. It doesn't necessarily blow the competition away, but it has earned a spot in many libraries for how easy it is to log in and just run a few riffs on occasion. Diablo 3 creates a perfect middle ground of depth and accessibility. So let's talk about the tools we have at our disposal for creating interesting abilities. We have 4 real principles we can follow here. We can impact player behavior, create new puzzles, play into class identity, and create synergy. These principles will help us create engaging ability systems that feel good and allow for depth and expression. What's nice about these principles is that they scale. You don't need an ARPG loot explosion to apply them. Even small games can use these ideas to make abilities feel meaningful and expressive. Let's start with the core idea behind this whole video. Abilities should change how the player plays the game. If you get a new ability in a game, then it should change how you play. It should open new doors for you and create alternative methods of interacting with game mechanics. If nothing you do changes, then the ability isn't meaningful. In Diablo 3, legendary items force new behaviors. They change how you position, time abilities, or manage resources. The next thing is creating new puzzles. Abilities should create new problems and new solutions. Players love to solve problems. A new ability shouldn't just give power or create upward changes. Powerful character builds usually include risks like squishiness, resource starvation, or cooldown dependence. Figuring out how to optimize the build with those challenges is incredibly satisfying for players. Good abilities aren't about adding power, they're about adding choices. Players don't remember how strong a build was, they remember how it worked. The struggle to make a risky build viable is often more satisfying than playing something safe and optimal from the start. We also want to make sure abilities are identifiable. When I look at a build in Diablo 3 called LOD Twister Wizard, I know I'm looking at a build that emphasizes the Legacy of Dreams gem and the Twister ability. In Diablo 3, abilities tell you what they do. Meteor calls down a meteor. Electrocute zaps enemies. Sentry creates a sentry. It can be tempting to be fancy and creative with names, but when you make abilities, you want them to be recognizable and descriptive. A Twister Wizard summons Twisters. An Army of the Dead Necromancer summons an Army of the Dead. We can look at these names and know what we're dealing with even though we haven't even seen the numbers. Clear naming also lowers the cognitive load. Players can spend their mental energy on strategy instead of deciphering what something does. That clarity is a form of accessibility that often gets overlooked. The last concept we want to tackle is synergy. When your systems are designed well, then it won't feel like an endless grind. Players will be engaged and creative and constantly combine different things to see if they can find the next S-tier build. The best builds in Diablo 3 feel like complex machines with many interlocking gears. Everything works together to create a powerful combination of abilities. When synergy clicks, it feels earned. It's the moment where the build stops being a collection of items and starts feeling like a single coherent idea. Keeping those principles in mind, what are some more broad game design theories we can take from Diablo 3? Well, we love simplicity, horizontal growth, experimentation, and player agency. These are all things we can look at and learn from. What all of these ideas have in common is respect for the player. The system trusts players to explore, to experiment, and to find joy in the mechanics themselves. In Diablo 3, a single legendary item can define an entire build. We can see that simplicity can be just as expressive as complexity. As long as the choices are interesting, there's no need to have overly complex choices. We can also look at horizontal depth. Vertical stat growth is nice, but it's not a source of depth. Having choices that change the way you play over vertical stat increases can help add depth to the gameplay. There's variety and new ways to play. It's more than just the same build with bigger numbers. Because of that, and the fact that a single item drop can create a whole new build, players are encouraged to experiment. We aren't worried about losing numbers because we're moving horizontally. We can experiment and play around with skills and abilities we normally wouldn't touch. When I make a witch doctor, you won't catch me not using every pet I can, but maybe with the right legendary, I could be persuaded to create a Piranha Nado instead of a Gargantuan Brawler. When our design encourages experimentation and we aren't shy about giving the player access to all the fun toys, we are naturally creating a source of player agency. We're giving them abilities that feel interesting and create choices for the player. We're not choosing for them and we aren't giving them chores. The more agency we can give players, the better. As game designers, we want to make sure we're creating experiences that players want to play through. We want to create worlds that are interesting. We're a few decades past the point of just grinding to make numbers bigger. Players want and expect more from us as designers. Diablo 3 shows us that RPGs don't need bigger crits. Diablo 3 shows us that RPGs need bigger ideas. It's a reminder that the most interesting abilities aren't upgrades, they're transformations. Diablo 3 reminds us that progression doesn't have to mean escalation. It can mean transformation. When abilities evolve instead of inflate, players stay engaged not because they're stronger, but because they're different. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe. I'm Alex with Serious Goose Games, and I'll see you in the next one.